This creature may look like a statue carved from black stone, but it isn't what you think, because when he brushed the dust from her glass skin, she breathed and whispered, "Run, before I remember you." The desert was alive, breathing heat like an animal in pain. Aaron Hale moved slowly through the dunes, every step sinking into red sand that burned through his boots. The land stretched flat in every direction, empty, endless, cruel. He'd been walking for hours, chasing dead coordinates that promised fortune and delivered nothing. Then he saw it, a glint of blue buried beneath a wave of crimson dust. He approached, thinking it was metal, maybe an old mining core. But the shape was wrong. Too curved, too smooth. His fingers brushed it clean, and what he uncovered wasn't metal at all. It was skin. Smooth, black as glass, cold to the touch even under the burning sun. He froze, breath caught in his throat. His gloved hand moved faster now, clearing more sand. An arm appeared. A shoulder. Then a face. When her eyes opened, they were silver. Not gray, not pale blue. Real silver glowing in the sunlight. For a second, neither of them moved. Then her lips cracked open and the words came, low and broken. "Run, before I remember you." If he turned away, she would die there, buried in her own grave of sand and silence. But if he helped, if he touched her again, he would be marked forever. Her scent, her presence, her kind, none of them forgave contamination. "You don't understand," she rasped. "Your scent means death. If they smell you on me, they'll burn the wind around you." The desert seemed to hold its breath. Aaron stared at her, torn between fear and something else, something human. He could already feel the law tightening around them both, invisible but deadly. If he walked away, she was gone. If he stayed, they would both be hunted. He took a slow breath, steadying his shaking hands. "Then let them come," he said quietly. "I'm not leaving someone alive in a grave." The choice was made. And in that single act, in that forbidden rescue, the law of the wasteland began to break. Aaron worked through the heat and the fear, digging faster with every handful of sand. The sun burned overhead, but the chill from her skin spread through his gloves. Bit by bit, more of her form appeared. An arm, a shoulder, the curve of a collarbone. She was enormous, twice his height, even half buried. Her body shimmered faintly like shadows trapped under glass. Her eyes followed his movements. "Stop!" she hissed, her voice raw and jagged. "You don't know what you're touching." "I know you're dying," Aaron said, digging harder. "That's enough." The wind rose, throwing sharp red dust into his face. When he looked up again, her lips were trembling. "You shouldn't care," she said softly. "Humans never do." "Maybe I'm not like most humans." He didn't see the flicker that passed over her face then, something between confusion and grief. He only kept digging until the sun began to fall, until his gloves tore and his hands bled, until he could see the shape of her chest rise and fall. When the final wave of sand collapsed, her full form was revealed, skin dark as midnight, eyes burning like silver fire, and a beauty that felt dangerous to look at for too long. She tried to stand, but the desert held her like a shroud. Aaron reached for his canteen, offering water with a shaking hand. She stared at it like it was poison. "If I drink that," she warned, "your scent will bind to me, and they will come." He didn't flinch. "Then let them come after both of us." He pressed the canteen to her lips. She drank. In that moment, under a dying red sun, the wasteland changed. The line between life and law cracked open, and something ancient took notice. Night fell quickly in the desert. The heat vanished, replaced by cold that cut through bone. Aaron stayed beside her, wrapping his scarf tighter as she began to stir. The air grew heavy, humming with a strange rhythm. "They'll smell you soon," she whispered, her breath misting in the dark. "My kin. The pure ones." "Then we'd better finish this before they arrive," Aaron said. He tore pieces of tarp from his pack, fashioned them into a harness, and tied ropes around her shoulders. Each knot burned against her fever-hot skin. "This is going to hurt," he warned. She almost smiled. "Everything already does." He pulled with everything he had. The rope dug deep into his palms, tearing what was left of his gloves. The sand shifted, resisting, then released with a sudden groan. She slid free, collapsing forward, her massive form trembling in the moonlight. Aaron dropped beside her, chest heaving. "You're out," he said, half laughing, half crying. "You shouldn't have done this," she breathed. "Now the law will see you as mine, contaminated, marked." "Good," Aaron said, meeting her eyes. "Maybe that means I finally belong somewhere." Far on the horizon, the wind began to move differently. Shadows rippled across the dunes like water. The kin were coming. They came at dawn, dozens of tall figures moving through the red light, silent as ghosts. Their armor gleamed like bone, and their eyes were black mirrors that swallowed the sun. They surrounded the two of them in a perfect circle. One stepped forward. Its voice was hollow, ancient, human scent, forbidden. Aaron didn't move. Zora, because now he knew her name, lifted her head. "He saved me," she said. "He did what your laws would not." The leader tilted its head. "Then you should have died clean." Aaron's fists clenched. "She's alive. Isn't that what matters?" "You misunderstand," the leader said coldly. "She is not supposed to live at all. Your touch has tainted her." Zora turned sharply to him. "Don't speak," she whispered. "They'll kill you for defiance." But Aaron took a step forward anyway. "Then they can try." The circle tightened. The leader's black eyes glimmered. "Interesting. A human with courage. You will die for it." "Maybe," Aaron said, his voice steady. "But not before I make you see that saving someone isn't a crime." The wind trembled. The warriors' weapons rose as one. And in that breath before chaos, Zora spoke the words that changed everything. "Wait. There is another way." The ritual of separation. Let the fire decide if my contamination is real. The leader paused. "If you survive that trial," Zora's silver eyes flashed, "then let me be the first." The circle parted. Flames would soon decide what the law could not, and what love had already begun to rewrite. They took her at sunrise. The air shimmered with heat that didn't come from the sun. Aaron tried to follow, but the warriors held him back, their hands like steel. He shouted, begged, but they ignored him. In the center of the stone circle, Zora stood tall. Her eyes met his across the distance. "I told you not to come closer," she said. "Your scent means death." Aaron shook his head. "Then I'll die with you." The leader raised a hand and the world caught fire. Flames roared to life around Zora, white and blue, so bright they erased shadow. She didn't scream. She stood inside the burning light, her body trembling, her face calm. The chant of the warriors grew louder, shaking the ground beneath them. Aaron tried to break free. "Stop it! You're killing her!" "If she is strong," the leader said, "she emerges clean. If not, she burns." The flames grew taller, swirling into a storm. Through it, Zora's voice cut through the roar. "I told you not to come closer, but I'm glad you did." Then the fire exploded. Aaron was thrown back, his body hitting the stone hard. When he looked up, the circle was empty. The chanting stopped. The air stank of smoke and something sharp, metallic. The warriors stared at the center where the fire had been. Only ash remained, and a single shard of glass, black and gleaming like a broken heart. The leader picked it up and turned it in the light. "She burned," it said quietly, but not away. "This is her, changed." Aaron pushed to his feet, voice shaking. "Where is she?" The leader looked toward the horizon. "Where the fire went." "Into the storm." Aaron didn't wait. He ran into the desert, into the wind, chasing what the fire had left behind. The storm hit hours later. Sand screamed against the sky, tearing at his skin and clothes. He walked until his body ached, until he couldn't see where the ground ended. Then his hand struck something solid. Glass. Smooth. Warm. He dug with bleeding fingers, clearing the sand until he saw the shape of a hand, massive, blue, crystalline. It pulsed once, twice. "A heartbeat, Zora," he whispered. "Can you hear me?" The glass grew warmer under his palm, glowing faintly from within. Her voice came through the storm, faint as a dream. "Help!" He built a shelter beside her, a flimsy tent made of tarps and rope, shielding her from the wind. Each night he poured what little water he had over the crystal, watching it vanish into the surface as if the glass were drinking. He spoke to her in the dark, his voice cracked from thirst and hope. Days passed. When the storm finally cleared, he saw her whole, kneeling in the sand, frozen in glass, one hand outstretched toward him. Her face was calm, lips parted like she was about to speak. Aaron fell to his knees. "Why did you do this?" he whispered. The glass pulsed again, faint but alive. He pressed both hands against it. "I'll find a way. I promise." And under the merciless sun, surrounded by endless silence, a heartbeat answered back. 3 figures appeared on the horizon days later. Not warriors this time, healers. Their eyes weren't black, but shades of gray and silver. They stopped when they saw the glass statue and bowed their heads. "She lives," one whispered. "The fire changed her." Aaron stepped in front of them. "You're not taking her." The tallest healer raised her hands. "We came to help. We are not of the warrior clans. We do not believe that contamination is death." Her voice was soft, patient. "She isn't dead. She's trapped between fire and flesh. You can reach her, human. She held on to your scent when the flames came. That's why she survived?" Aaron frowned. "So I did this to her?" "No," the healer said. "She chose it. She could have let go, but she didn't. She held on to you instead. They taught him how to reach her, how to breathe slowly, focus his mind, and press his palm against the glass. To speak, not with words, but with memory. She needs to remember what it feels like to live," the healer said. "You must remind her." Aaron nodded. "Then teach me." They stayed for 3 days, showing him how to listen for the pulse beneath the surface. On the 3rd morning, the healer warned, "The warriors will come. You have little time." When they left, Aaron sat beside the glass, hand resting on the place where her heartbeat was strongest. "I'm here," he whispered. "I'm not leaving. Not until you come back." And the pulse beneath his palm grew stronger. Days turned to weeks. Cracks appeared in the glass, thin at first, then spreading like veins filled with light. Her shape began to move beneath the surface, eyes fluttering, fingers twitching. "Come on," Aaron said softly. "You're almost there." The transformation spread, glass turning to flesh, crystal to skin as dark as midnight. Her silver eyes opened, finding his face instantly. "You stayed," she whispered. "I told you I would." She smiled faintly. "You fool!" But her hand reached out, warm and trembling, covering his. The glow spread faster now, racing through her body until she was whole again, alive, breathing, real. They sat in silence, both shaking. Finally, she spoke. "The ritual failed because of you, because I wouldn't let go of your scent. Do you understand what that means?" Aaron nodded slowly. "The healer told me. You chose me over your people." "I chose life," Zora said softly, "and you were the only thing alive worth holding on to." When the warriors returned, they came in force, hundreds of them marching through the dunes. Their leader stepped forward, spear in hand. "You survived," it said. "Impossible." "Possible," Zora replied, standing tall beside Aaron. "And real. The law demands your death. Then the law is wrong." The silence that followed was like thunder waiting to fall. Aaron stood beside her. "You'll have to kill us both." Zora raised her hand and pressed it to Aaron's chest, her voice clear and ringing. "This is my choice. This human, this scent, this life, I choose it freely." Whispers rippled through the crowd. Doubt, fear, awe. The healer who had helped Aaron stepped forward. "I saw her survive the fire. I saw her change. She is proof that purity is not the only path." The leader hesitated. For the first time, its voice faltered. "You would have us abandon everything?" "No," Zora said. "I would have you remember what we were before fear ruled us." The wind shifted. "Weapons lowered!" The leader finally spoke. "Go, both of you. You are exiled, not forgiven." Zora's voice was steady. "Exile is still freedom." They turned and walked into the desert together, the sun setting behind them in gold and fire. They walked for days with no direction. When night fell, they shared warmth and silence. When dawn came, they built small fires and planned where to go next. Zora called herself contaminated. Aaron called her alive. They found others, humans, Kethri, healers, wanderers, tired of old laws and endless fear. Together, they began to build something new in a canyon of stone and sand. A home for both kinds. It wasn't perfect. They fought, they struggled, they disagreed. But they learned, and they lived. Months later, as the sun rose over their settlement, Zora stood beside Aaron. "Do you regret it?" she asked. He smiled. "Not one thing." She looked out over the horizon, her silver eyes soft. "When I told you my scent meant death, I didn't know it would mean this." Aaron took her hand. "It doesn't mean death anymore. It means memory." The desert wind carried their words away, across the dunes where old laws used to rule. The law had said contamination was death, but they had proved it could also mean change. Sometimes, saving one life is enough to break an empire's rules. Sometimes, the scent that was meant to destroy you becomes the memory that keeps you alive. So when the world tells you to stay away, come closer, because that's where life begins. Years passed in the desert. What began as exile grew into something larger, something neither law nor war could erase. The settlement became a living thing, half human, half Kethri, all stubborn hope. They called it the Crossing, because it stood between two worlds that had once feared to touch. Children played among the stone shelters, their laughter echoing across the canyon walls. Some had silver eyes, others human brown, and a few with both, proof that the old rules no longer ruled them. Zora watched them with a quiet pride she never put into words. Aaron built tools, repaired solar panels, and taught anyone who asked how to read the stars. One night, sitting by the fire, Zora spoke softly. "Do you ever wonder if they'll come for us again?" Aaron looked into the flames. "Maybe, but if they do, they'll find more than 2 exiles waiting," she smiled faintly. "They'll find a world that learned to live." Above them, the desert sky shimmered with the faint green of auroras, light made from the remnants of the same fire that had once nearly destroyed them. The same flame that had burned the law and then built a home from its ashes. Zora often returned to the edge of the dunes where Aaron had first found her. The stones there still glimmered faintly, fused into glass by the heat of her transformation. She would kneel, press her hand against the sand, and listen. "Once," she told him, "I used to think purity made us strong. That isolation protected us. But purity is just fear with a pretty name." Aaron nodded. "And fear is just the first thing we burn." They stood there together as the wind moved over the desert, carrying the scent of dust and life, of endings and beginnings. If you walked through that desert years later, you'd still see the cairn Aaron built, the stones stacked high around the place where he first uncovered her. And if you listened closely, you might hear the heartbeat that never stopped, pulsing beneath the sand. 2 people had rewritten the law of an entire world, not with armies, but with one choice: to come closer when everything said to run. Their story became a warning and then a legend. But for those who lived at the crossing, it was something simpler. A truth carried on the wind. When the law says purity, choose mercy. When the world says distance, choose touch. And when fear tells you to run, remember her words, "Run before I remember you." Because remembering is how everything changes. The wind rises again, scattering sand over glass. The camera would fade out on the horizon, 2 shadows walking toward the sunrise, voice soft, steady, closing the story. Maybe your world has its own deserts. Maybe your laws say who you can't save, who you can't love, who you can't touch. But laws can change. All it takes is one person who refuses to leave another buried. So come closer. If you like this story, share it with someone who once told you to keep your distance. Because every time someone chooses connection over fear, the world becomes a little less dead. This was, he brushed the dust from her stone skin. She breathed. Run. Before I remember you. A story about breaking laws, crossing lines and remembering what makes us alive.